Hey everyone, it's Kim and welcome back to Bookmarks and Breadsticks. I asked you guys down in the comments below and in the community tab what kind of recommended lists and other videos you're looking for. And the one I got a definitive yes was, I want a list all about fish. So today I have 15 books for you that you could read about fish. And now let's just call it aquatic life because there's definitely some books in there about lobsters and oysters, technically crustaceans, but it's okay. It's all gonna fall in that world of seafood. There's 3 different piles that we're gonna work through, some of them being single books about single topics. Cod, Alaskan pollock. Then there's a whole area about memoirs and family tradition around fish. And the 3rd pile is food and seafood sustainability. So before we jump into that first pile, make sure that you have hit like and subscribe and comment down below on what kind of videos you're also looking for me to review in this food writing space. But before we get started, if you're new to my channel, hi, my name is Kim and I specialize in food writing. Food writing is this subgenre world of nonfiction that I just adore. Call it culinary adventures, the look behind the curtain in the kitchen. I am here to talk about food in so many different ways, and it often intersects with other genres like agriculture, food and sustainability, restaurants, businesses, and my favorite, which is chef, memoirs, and food history. So let's get started with some single topic food books. So the first pile here, as you guys can see, I have 6 books for you all about different single fish, single seafoods. That doesn't roll off the tongue very well, I'm realizing. But these are books that focus on one animal of the sea. The first person I have to talk about in 2 different books is Mark Kurlansky. Mark Kurlansky has 2 different books, The Big Oyster and Cod. So if you don't know who Mark Kurlansky is, to me, he is one of the most effective food writers, food historians I have ever read, and was one of the first that I really enjoyed. I've done reviews on my channel, which I'll link above and below, on his book Salt, and he has a couple of others as well. So if you want to learn about the history of oysters, especially in America, pick up The Big Oyster. Award-winning author Mark Kurlansky tells the remarkable story of New York by following the trajectory of one of the most fascinating inhabitants, the oyster. Now, another book, which is a little small guy, if you put them side by side, I think you can see that, is Cod. This is all about the biography of the fish that changed the world. There actually aren't a lot of cod left anymore. Wars have been fought over it. Revolutions have been spurred by it. National diets have been based on it. Economies have depended on it. And the national settlement of North America was driven by it. So these are 2 books by Mark Kurlansky I've already read. He also has a 3rd book that will be in another pile. So if you want to start with one of the, I'd say, OGs of food writing, and I guess you could say agriculture and aquatic history, pick up Mark Kurlansky if you want to read about The Big Oyster or Cod. Let's say I want to learn about sushi. Now, I know. I mean, sushi is fish and crustaceans. They're just dead and you get to eat them. I recommend the book Oishi by Eric C. Rath. This is the history of sushi. This is a 2021 hardcover publication from Rectian Books that I was so graciously sent by the publisher. I've also reviewed this somewhere on my channel. It is a little bit more straightforward and a shorter book, just under 200 pages, and you get beautiful pictures and recipes. Let me see if I can find a good picture. About the history of sushi throughout the history of sushi throughout the world, not just America, but all over the world. And another camera battery's dead. I'm gonna be right back. Okay, this is the 3rd camera battery, and I haven't even gotten through part 1 of my list of fish books. So my camera is just too excited and just can't handle it. I was talking about Oishi, a great book if you want to learn about the history of sushi and its cuisine globally. Beautiful pictures from Rectian Books. And next, let's talk about a different book or a different fish, the Alaskan pollock. This is The $1 Billion Fish. This is The Untold Story of the Alaskan Pollock by Kevin Bailey. This one is from about 2017, and as you guys can see, I started to read it, but I'm gonna put it on my list this month because I actually just finished a different book about fish, so I seem to be in a fishy kind of mood. So this book falls into, I'd say, food writing and nature writing. If you're eating fish but you don't know what kind it is, it's almost certainly Alaskan pollock. Prized for its generic fish taste, pollock masquerades as crab meat in California rolls and seafood salads, and it feeds millions as fish sticks in school cafeterias and filet-o-fish sandwiches at McDonald's. That ubiquity has made pollock the most lucrative fish harvest in America. But even as the money rolls in, pollock's in trouble. In recent years, the pollock population has declined by more than half, and some scientists are predicting this fishery's eventual collapse. This is a surprise to no one. We are notorious for overfishing our natural resources, so I'm gonna read this and probably be a little bummed out, but definitely want to get to this. This was also sent to me from the University of Chicago Press, so thank you again for this book. 2 more books if you're looking for a single fish topic: eel and lobsters. So the Book of Eels is by Patrick Stevenson, which I realize I still have a price ticker on it. So this book I read, it's an international bestseller, and I definitely have reviewed this book. This wasn't personally my favorite, but I did listen to it as an audiobook. I did enjoy some of the history around it. Eels are very elusive, and it's been very hard or near impossible to breed eels in captivity. So there's a lot of really fascinating knowledge in this book. I recommend you pick it up, skip the audiobook, because I just don't think it did this justice. I mean, this is a bestseller for a reason, but when I read the book, when I listened to it, I found it a little tedious. I think it is going to be much better read. Let me just read the inside cover, give you a quick snippet. Part H is for hawk, part the soul of an octopus. This global phenomena, published in 33 countries, is both a meditation on the world's most elusive creature and the reflection on the fleeting magic of life itself. Remarkably, little is known about the eel. So little, in fact, that scientists and philosophers have for centuries obsessed with what has become to be known as the eel question. Where do eels come from? Are they fish, or are they some other creature altogether? Even today, in the age of advanced science, no one has ever seen eels mating or giving birth, and we still don't understand what drives them, after living for decades in fresh water, to swim great distances back to the ocean at the end of their lives. They remain a mystery. So like I said, I didn't enjoy the audiobook experience while listening to this, but I did find the mystery, it is so captivating. And I think about it now and like, I still don't know enough about eel. I actually find eel quite delicious. I hope that's not problematic to say, but I do think it's worth picking up and reading the book, at least grab it from your local library. And finally, The Secret Life of Lobsters. This is an oldie but a goodie. It's been around the block. Let's see, at least my copy's so old that it still kind of has like the discolored edges and color coming in. It's how fishermen and scientists are unraveling the mystery of our favorite crustacean. Let's see. This was from 2004. So like I said, it is, it's 2022, so nearly 20 years old. And this is written by Trevor Corson. This is a great look into lobsters. I think this is talking about lobsters in 2004 when overfishing is a problem, but not nearly as catastrophic of a problem as it is now. So I think it's good to decade and reference what time period you're in when reading this book, but I found this really interesting, and it's an intimate portrait of an island lobstering community and the eccentric band of renegade biologists. Journalist Trevor Corson escorts the reader onto slippery decks of fishing boats, through danger-filled scuba dives, and deep into the churning currents of the Gulf of Maine to learn about the secret undersea life of lobsters. I always love telling people that originally people thought lobsters were like these gross, spiny creatures, that they use lobster bait for fish, like fishing bait. And now it's like a prized crustacean. So it's just so interesting. And the book does touch on that, how perceptions change and how now it's a prized possession. I really recommend both of these books for very different reasons. But what I love about single topics, or when a journalist really goes into a single animal and this fixation, is that you do get to see not only the animal, but also how it impacts communities fishing communities, boating communities, how people are surviving, family-owned, multiple generation, and also the journey it takes that animal or crustacean to go from the water to your dinner table or to a restaurant's dinner table. Okay, this next pile is a mix of, I would call them, food memoirs that deal with fish. A lot of these are new to me. No, I'd say half of them are new to me. So let me start with the books I haven't read yet, just to be fully open about it. Because these are actually books I've hauled in the last 2 to 3 months because I am just in this fish mood. The first is by Eric Dregney, For the Love of Cod. A father and son search for Norwegian happiness. It is just like it sounds like. It is a travel-ish memoir to Norway So this is a travel memoir, father-son duo to Norway. Norway is usually near or at the top of the World Happiness Report. But is it really one of the happiest countries on earth? Eric Dregney had his doubts. Years ago, he and his wife had lived in this country. Eric Dregney had his doubts. Years ago, he and his wife had lived in this country his great-great-grandfather once fled. When their son, Elif, was born, the Norwegian government paid for the birth, gave them $5,000 and deposited $500 in their bank every month. But surely happiness is more than a generous healthcare system. What about all those grim months without sun? When Elif turns 15, father and son decide to go back together and investigate. For the Love of Cod is their report on the state of purported Norwegian bliss. I'm not sure how much will actually be about cod. It's going to be part of the story, but For the Love of Cod, and such a really cool, come on, focus on the cover, a pretty cool cover as well. Another multi-generational story is Russ and Daughters, Reflections and Recipes from the House That Herring Built by Mark Ress Fetterman. So this is a family memoir about Russ and Daughters, which is actually a store. The former owner-proprietor of the beloved appetizing store on Manhattan's Lower East Side tells the delightful, mouth-watering story of an immigrant family's journey from a pushcart in 1907 to New York's most hallowed shrine, to the miracle of caviar, smoked salmon, ethereal herring, and silken chopped liver. That's quoted per the New York Times Magazine. I love stories like this. I last month finished Zavar. I love multi-family generational stores, restaurants. I love the immigrant story. It is near and dear to my heart and part of why I love this genre. So I'm very excited to read Russ and Daughters. This came out, I believe, at the very end of 2020, and I finally got my hands on a copy. I am super pumped. And following in line, again, a final memoir of multi-generational stories, My Father's Smokehouse, Stories and Recipes from Fish Camp by Vivian Faith Prescott. This takes place in the Appalachian Mountains, and it is about Mickey's Fish Camp. And it's a smokehouse that's filled with traditions and stories thriving in Alaskan life, of a family's perseverance, of the wisdom of Sami and Tlingit cultures, and the respect for elders and their knowledge of the natural world. Again, I haven't read this one. I just hauled this one last month in June, so I'm very, very excited. I don't know if I should do a fish-themed vlog and then cook a piece of fish, but I admit I don't cook a lot of fish. I don't really know how. I have filleted fish in my butchery classes, but who knows? Maybe I could break down a fish. But finished 3 more books in this memoir-based area. One is Shucked by Erin Byers Murray. This is life on a New England oyster farm, and this journalist decides to spend a year, multiple years actually, unpaid working on the barge of an oyster farm. And it was, she's from Boston and she works in Massachusetts. This is such an awesome story. And there's no reason she decided to do this other than she just loved oysters and was at a point in her life where she didn't want to just keep writing at a desk, but is still a writer. And the ups and downs of working on it, being a woman working in oysters, how her relationship with her husband changed. Shucked is a great memoir. You can also listen to it on Scribed. This book I haven't read, which I realize should probably be in the other pile, is The Last Fish Tale, The Fate of the Atlantic and Survival in Gloucester, America's Oldest Fishing Port and Most Original Town. So this is another Mark Kurlansky book that I didn't read. Oh, this was probably when my camera battery died. So this is one of the Kurlansky books I haven't finished yet. The best-selling author of Cod, Salt, and the Big Oyster has enthralled readers with his incisive blend of culinary, cultural, and social history. True. Now, in his most colorful, personal, and important book to date, Mark Kurlansky turns his attention to the disappearing way of life, fishing, how it has thrived in and defined one particular town for centuries, and what its imperiled future means for the rest of the world. The culture of fishing is vanishing, and consequently, coastal societies are changing in unprecedented ways. The once thriving fishing communities of Rockport, Nantucket, Newport, Mystic, and the other coastal towns from Newfoundland to Florida and along with the West Coast have been forced to abandon their roots and become tourist destinations instead. Gloucester, Massachusetts, however, is a rare survivor. The livelihood of America's oldest fishing port has always been rooted in the life and culture of commercial fishing. So this, not a memoir, coastal town. So I guess it's really not a single topic, like a single fish. It is about a town. So I guess it could sit here in this pile of kind of like memoirs / towns. So you tell me in the comments where you would have slotted this book, because I think it kind of blends both piles I have. And the final memoir that I have very mixed feelings that I should recommend to you, but I absolutely hated, is Why Fish Don't Exist, The Story of Love, Loss, and the Hidden Order of Life by Lulu Miller. This is a memoir, and it is about David Starr Jordan. The book Bully has a great conversation. Jill loved this book. I hated this book. I hated it because I felt it was very unbalanced in its storytelling. But I will let you be the judge of it. The cover is very pretty. So let me read the back of it for you. Okay, it was on the best... Look, I should say, it was considered the best book of 2020 by the Washington Post, NPR, the Chicago Tribune, the Smithsonian, and Audible. I just didn't like it. I listened to it as an audiobook with Dan in the car, and even he liked it way more than I did. I just found the storytelling very unbalanced. But anyway... A dark and astonishing tale of love, chaos, scientific obsession, and possibly even murder. David Starr Jordan was a taxonomist, a man possessed with bringing order to the natural world, but chaos seemed to get to him. His fish collections were demolished by lightning, by fire, and eventually by the 1906 San Francisco earthquake, which sent more than 1,000 specimens, housed in fragile glass jars, plummeting to the floor. In an instant, his life's work was shattered. But instead of giving in to despair, Jordan introduced one clever innovation that he believed would at least protect his work against the chaos of the world. When NPR reporter Lulu Miller first heard of this anecdote in passing, she took Jordan as a fool, a cautionary tale in hubris or denial. But as her own life slowly unraveled, she began to wonder about him. Perhaps instead he was a model for how to go on when all seems lost. What she would unearth in his life would transform her understanding of nature, history, morality, and love. I think that David Starr Jordan is a very fascinating human, also an absolute psychopath, as you'll learn later in the book. I felt like I just wanted more from Lulu Miller as the author. She's talking about a very personal journey she is going on, and it just felt very unbalanced. That's just my opinion. But again, it made the best of 2020 list for a lot of publications. Jill over at the Book Bully really loved it. Olive at a Book Olive really liked it. Just wasn't for me. But I do recommend it to people because I do think the writing's really good. And I think I learned a lot about David Starr Jordan. So like I could have seen this as a whole Discovery Channel series where, where they like half act and half tell you facts. Like the American history kind of, what are they called? Dramatic retellings. I could see this being made or translated. It's rich with information. It's a captivating story. I just really... something didn't work for me. I'm going to stop rambling about this and get on to that final pile. Okay, the final pile is considered fish sustainability. And first, I need to talk about the 2019 So this pile is all about fish sustainability and ocean sustainability. The first book I have to talk about is the 2019 James Beard Award-winning book for food writing, Eat a Fish by Bren Smith. My adventures as a fisherman turned restorative ocean farmer. This is very much a reflection of Bren's life and how he ended up in sustainable fishing. And it was the first book that introduced me to a lot of sustainable practices I didn't know about, like hydroponics. And if you don't know about the Billion Oyster Project, about bringing oysters back to the Hudson River and down in New York City, I also highly recommend you check them out and follow them on Instagram. This was a book that really opened my eyes to aquatic and fish-related sustainability. I've, tried to shop locally. Have my own garden, but I had never thought about sustainability in the lens of the ocean. And this book was the first one that really highlighted my interest. I completely understand why it won the Food Writing Award in 2019. He is a hero. He is a regular guy who doesn't have this huge PhD. He just grew up working fishing boats and noticed his environment was changing and wanted to do something about it, partially to keep himself just in business and keep him, put food on the table, but really has now become a leader in the space. Of all the books I recommend, this has got to be in the top 3 that I really hope you guys pick up. Eat Like a Fish, by Bren Smith. Next up is American Catch, The Fight for Our Local Seafood by Paul Greenberg. Paul Greenberg has many books about fish and fish sustainability. This is a little bit of an older book and talks about different areas or different fish, such as salmon, oysters, and shrimp. This book came out... Oh look, another battery is going to die. I don't know why it's so hard to film today. This came out in 2014, so it's a couple years old now, but really a great fundamental book if you want to understand some of the fishing practices around some of your favorite seafood and how they're not sustainable. And long term, we could lose some of our favorite crustaceans and delicious fish. I am sure this camera angle has changed many times. It took 4 batteries. I don't know what is up with this camera. I have 2 books left for you in the food sustainability category for books all about fish. First is Catching Hell, The Insider Story of Seafood from the Ocean to Plate by Alan Ricca with Joe Muto. I'm actually reading this. I have less than 50 pages to go, and this is a May 2022 release. And Alan is actually a fish purveyor. He is the one who gets fish to your restaurants and teaches you all of the inside tricks and some of the marketing schemes and some of the hustle. Maybe one of the best examples is that organic salmon is a complete lie. Because salmon are raised or farm raised in open nets, usually in oceans or large bodies of water, you can't actually control what goes through the net other than the salmon can't go out. Now, you might feed your fish organic food, but who knows what else they're eating. There's also no official certifying body or standard of identification for organic seafood. So if you see organic seafood, specifically, or more like most specifically organic salmon, it's an utter lie. The other big lie I've learned so far is something that's called fresh catch. According to USDA rules, or I think it's the USDA or the FDA, any fish that's coming from waters that enters the United States must come in frozen. So unless you are in a seaside town that quite literally can pull the fish from the dock to your dinner restaurant plate, anything else that's being shipped, especially from outside waters, has come in frozen. So fresh fish don't really exist. The other and final book I want to recommend for fish sustainability or industry, because I realize this is more about industry than sustainability, but this new book is The Blue Revolution, Hunting, Harvesting, and Farming Seafood in the Information Age by Nicholas P. Sullivan. This is also a 2022 release that just came out this month, and this technically has been slotted under the nature writing section. Again, as I mentioned in my intro, food writing often intersects with other genres such as nature writing. This falls under their ecosystems category of oceans and seas, which seems perfect. So I have not read this. This just arrived yesterday, so let me read the inside cover for you. Oceans are in trouble, and the story is all too familiar. For decades, commercial fleets have increasingly fished farther, deeper, and with industrial efficiency. and global fish stocks are showing the strain, many reaching dangerous tipping points. But in an unexpected twist, older fishing fleets are being replaced not by faster boats and bigger nets, but by smart digital tools that can control wild harvests and increased farmed seafood carefully, equitably, and sustainably, and just in time. The Blue Revolution tells the story of the fishing industry in transformation, where the seafood on our plates is increasingly the product of small decisions about ecosystems, waste, efficiency, transparency, and quality. It spotlights the historic fishing region of New England, where a 50-year wave of crises and response culminated in the collapse of cod stocks in the 1980s. See Mark Kurlansky's book, Cod. And the sea scallop industry in the 1990s collapsed. Thanks to strong fishery management, collaboration between fishermen, scientists, and regulators, as well as the availability of satellite imagery. This is a great example of reading Bren Smith's book, Eat Like a Fish. He talks about a lot of this conservation work that he has helped be a part of as a fisherman. As well as the availability of satellite imagery, underwater cameras, and advanced data analytic tools, the game has been changed for the better. Entrepreneurs and investors are creating more value from seafood products such as kelp and shellfish, lessening pressure on fisheries and providing new business opportunities in coastal communities. Bren specifically does talk about kelp harvesting. In a fast-growing world where more people are eating more fish than ever, the Blue Revolution brings encouraging news for conservationists and seafood lovers about the transformation of an industry historically averse to change. So this is what I'm talking about. As I read more and more books in this space, I love being able to reference to you guys new publications that harken back, or if you want more information about a specific area like New England, I can point you to Mark Kurlansky's books. Or if you want to learn about kelp harvesting or oysters, I can point out oyster books to you, or to Bren Smith's book. I really hope you enjoyed this 15 book list of books about fish in multiple different ways, whether that's single topics, fish sustainability practices, or memoirs and storytelling, food travel. Let me know in the comments below which book jumped out to you, and if you made it to the end, you gotta give me a fish emoji or a seafood shellfish emoji. Let me know if you like these lists and what other lists are you looking for. I have done lists. I have a whole playlist of recommended reads that I'll link above and down below, where I've talked about books about burgers and meat and cheese and now fish. Tell me what list you're looking for next, and I'll see you in the next one. If you want to find me on other social media channels, I'll have all those links down below, along with links to the Read It and Eat subscription boxes. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.